denial of the right to self-determination is the cause of more severe human rights violations. Of course, the right to self-determination is the main focus when we look at this conflict, but we should not neglect the fact that there are also other human rights violations. We are at the Human Rights Council, and we should be concerned not only about the violation of this right to self-determination, but also to the other consequences that arise from the denial of this right. Well, in my presentation, I will focus on 3 points. First of all, what is the frame to speak about well, the consequences for human rights for the violation of the right to self-determination? What is the frame to speak about this issue? Secondly, I will talk about the findings of the United Nations themselves on this issue. And finally, I will reflect about the structural problems that we find in domestic Moroccan law that cause severe human rights violations because precisely of this denial of the right to self-determination. Well, first of all, what is the frame to talk about this issue? And we find 4 points on this issue. First of all, we should begin, as Ambassador said, with the declaration of the independence and granting independence to the colonial folks. Well, this resolution 1514 is essential, but of course, it still remains the question, well, what are those territories, what are those peoples? And this is why the United Nations themselves created a committee to determine what are those territories entitled to the right of self-determination. And as you all know, from 1961 till now, Western Sahara is on this list. It means that, well, there are many peoples around the world. We could speak about Normandy, we could speak about Sussex, we could speak about Saxony, but those peoples, those regions, are not on the list. They are not entitled to the right of self-determination according to this resolution. Secondly, this declaration was adopted in the 2 covenants on civil and political rights and social and economic rights. Common Article 1 of those both covenants declare the right to self-determination of the peoples, and its content, political but also an economic content. And this is the right that is the first step to speak, to declare other rights. So it is clear in both covenants that the right to self-determination has a sort of preeminence because it's also the root. If you don't respect this right, it's very likely that you will not respect the other rights contained on those covenants. And the right to self-determination of the Sahrawi people is officially recognized in the United Nations resolutions of both General Assembly and Security Council. General Assembly of the United Nations has recognized the self-determination and independence of the Sahrawi people, as well as before the Moroccan occupation, for instance, in its resolution dated 1972, as well as after the Moroccan occupation in its resolution dated 1978. And in both cases, it said, General Assembly, that it recognized this right in accordance with General Assembly Resolution 1514. So the frame is very clear. Security Council also has recognized this right to self-determination to the Sahrawi people. Not only when the Security Council approved the settlement plan, which is the only plan approved by the Security Council in its resolution of 1990, but also when later on it declared the Security Council itself its support to the referendum of the self-determination of the Sahrawi people. But not only the United Nations bodies, the main bodies, the General Assembly and Security Council, have recognized this right. The Kingdom of Morocco itself abided to the right of self-determination. In September 1983, the King of Morocco himself, before the General Assembly of the United Nations, abided to the referendum of self-determination. Later on 1988, the Kingdom of Morocco agreed to the settlement proposals approved by the Security Council, which established a referendum to choose between the independence and the integration in the Kingdom of Morocco. Unfortunately, the Kingdom of Morocco did not honor its engagements. So we have a problem because the Kingdom of Morocco did not honor its solemn engagements before the United Nations, as well as before the General Assembly, as before the Security Council. Well, this is the frame of the question. What is the finding of the United Nations themselves? In 2006, among mutual accusations of violations of human rights, the Office of High Commissioner of the United Nations for Human Rights carried a visit mission to the occupied Western Sahara and the refugee camps, and drafted a report which is not public, but it has been officially communicated to the parties in the conflict. And among the recommendations, on the first one, the High Commission of the United Nations for Human Rights stated a number of human rights violations and said that the root, the cause of these human rights violations was the denial of the right to self-determination of the Sahrawi people. If, as it is the duty of this body, the Human Rights Council, if we want to respect human rights in the Western Sahara, we should begin with the respect to the right of self-determination of the Sahrawi people. But, and this is the final part of my intervention, we find some structural problems in the domestic Moroccan law. The press code of Morocco, which is enforced now said that there is a punishment of 3 to 5 years imprisonment to anybody who dares to express its opinion, just an opinion, against the territorial integrity of the kingdom. Insofar, the kingdom, after 2004, communicated to the United Nations that it will not accept a referendum with the option of independence, any opinion defending what is a right recognized by the United Nations risks 3 to 5 years imprisonment. This is a structural problem. So, I ask you as civil society, as diplomats, to act in accordance to international law. If you as diplomats do not respect international law, you are not respecting your own work. We should also, as civil society,